What's up, guys? I'm going to be talking about the big main event coming up this Saturday night for the heavyweight championship. Andy Ruiz Jr., Anthony Joshua 2. We know last June, I believe it was, one of the biggest boxing upsets in history with Ruiz Jr. taking the title from Joshua. I've been looking forward to the rematch since then. I'm sure Andy Ruiz did a little bit of holding out. Oh, sorry for that, guys. I'm sure they did a little bit of holding out on Ruiz's end. But I really think that he probably got a big payday in the end, so good luck for him. And now Anthony Joshua, every day since that last fight, I'm sure he's been thinking about it. The day that this fight got signed, you have to remember that these guys lock in, and from then on, it's going to be training, eating a certain way, making life miserable, all for 12 rounds. So this is the magnitude for this fight for these guys. It's by far the biggest fight of their career, the most on the line for sure. And I think you're going to see a really good fight. Now, as far as the lines go, guys, we saw Ruiz at 15-1 last time. So, massive stretch in the difference as far as betting goes. And as you can see, when it comes to boxing, guys, now we're used to MMA. For anybody who's new to the channel, it's the first video you've seen. Normally, I cover MMA, so UFC, all those events. I give away my bets for free. So if you are a fight fan, of course I don't charge anything. A lot of guys like to sell their bets and things. I always will give them away for free. So I'll ask your support for the channel. If you are new, hit the subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. But let's get into it. We got Andy Ruiz at 275 here. And Anthony Joshua. Now I think at 144, I think Andy Ruiz actually started out at maybe 3-1. I'm not 100% sure, where that line started. I do think it was a little bit better than this. Now, in my opinion, it's close to a 50-50 fight. On paper, Anthony Joshua definitely has a bit of an advantage. He's definitely capable of staying on the outside. If he played it smart, he could probably pick up a decision here. But Ruiz is no joke. I don't think that it was a fluke last time. Of course, Joshua could have played it smarter, but there's a lot of skill involved with getting in the way he did. It wasn't just one time, right? He definitely got in a bunch of times on Joshua and was able to get some good shots off. Now, I do feel like probably around maybe the second round or third. I forget when he got rocked. It wasn't the second, I don't think. I can't remember. But either way, once he got rocked and he got that, it almost looked like concussion symptoms, honestly, that he was fighting with. Deer in the headlights look, kind of that anybody who remembers the Ben Askren look in his eyes. So glassed over, didn't really look like he knew where he was at. And when the ref did call it off, he did look a bit surprised, of course, but I don't think there was a lot of protest going on. I don't think he felt that he was still, in the fight the way he needed to be. And of course, we saw Ruiz pick up the biggest upset, or one of the biggest upsets in boxing history. I don't think we, realize, I think we take for granted a lot of times the amount of good fights that we see or we've seen in this generation. Let's just, pick a time block, let's say 50 years. Now this is going to be ahead of my generation, of course, but from 1970 till now. So in that 50 years, the amount of amazing fights and amazing boxers, fighters in general that we've seen. We got guys like Muhammad Ali, Bruce Lee, the list goes on, of course, but we've seen so many icons, and we're seeing them now. So many guys that we're watching fight today, 20, 30, 50 years from now are going to be looked at like these guys that we see in the past. Now, it's going to be hard to ever reach the stature of guys like Ali and, of course, Bruce Lee. But what I'm trying to get at is, we're living in the best generation for fights. And this one here is huge. So as far as the betting goes, guys, I'm not an expert as much on boxing, but I will say as far as value goes, I don't see any on Joshua because of the fact he was rocked a lot in the last fight. We have to see if, I don't think he is necessarily phased as much as people say by Ruiz. Like a lot of people think Ruiz is in his head. But I do think Joshua has to come in with that mentality, even if it's not necessarily true, but he needs to be thinking that it's going to be a fight that, the way the first one should have went. So, that time, the first time was luck, that won't happen again. That he can, fight long, keep Ruiz, on his jab. And if he does rock him, not be so eager to go wild and come in and risk being hit. You know what I mean? So if he was able to stick to that game plan, I think he could get the job done. But is he able to stay away? Because Ruiz there's skill involved in that. It wasn't luck. Ruiz, like I said, he got in there. And that's not easy to do, right? There was a huge size difference, huge size difference, guys. When you look at the stare down there, and if you watch videos leading up to that, all the professionals were all saying that he had no chance, right? Nobody was picking Ruiz to win that first fight. And a funny story, guys, when I was looking at it, I didn't know a whole lot about Joshua. I had seen a few things. There was a ton of hype at that time for that first fight. And I watched a bit of tape on both because I was going to be watching that fight. And, I was a little bit interested to see. So my first introduction to Joshua was the research for that fight. And as, powerful as he was and as, good as he looked, I also thought that the line was off with Ruiz. He had a really good record. He had super fast hands. He was hungry. Nobody expected him to win. And that's always makes somebody more dangerous, right? When they have nothing to lose. And you only need to take a small shot. When the odds are like that, you take $10, you get a unit and a half or two, right? So I remember I went to do that research. And like I said, I looked at all the pros and everybody said no chance. And one of the last videos I watched was just a regular, just similar to like what I do with MMA, a smaller channel that focused on boxing. And he had said, you know what, I'm going to take the shot on Ruiz. So many times I've watched fights and thought these props were going to hit. I never put my money down. But tonight I'm not making that mistake. And sure enough, it hit. And I had, considered it leading up to watching that video. And when he said it, I said, you know what, fuck it. I wasn't going to put a lot of money anyway. I'm going to play the same thing and go with Ruiz by knockout, just a small amount. And sure enough, 2 units off. It was like $10, less than $15, just for fun, right? And I don't even usually do those, right? Usually the minimum I'll do is like a quarter of a unit when the lines are really off. But usually I like to stick to units, right? In this case, strictly a fun bet. I didn't really even necessarily think it was going to cash. I definitely thought it had a more of a chance than the line said. But when it hit, I was surprised. And I remember I went back to the guy and, really thanked him for that. So the moral of the story is, guys, if you have a feeling about the fight, go with your gut. Even if it's a small amount, don't let anybody else tell you what's going to happen or talk you out of it or make you feel a certain way like your pick's stupid or whatever. Tons of times I've made picks and everyone said, that's not going to happen. And a lot of times it does, right? So always go with what you feel, especially if, you look at something or, you hear another guy back up your initial thoughts. Don't be afraid if your brain's telling you pull the trigger to go with it. It's only the times when you're about to hit that place bet button and you feel bad about it that you got to avoid. But we're going to be in for a really good fight here. So it's hard to say that the value is not on Ruiz because I feel it is. At the most, maybe a 60-40 for Joshua. He does have the reach and, the tools on paper to get it done. If he didn't rush in like, last time, a lot of people feel it was his aggression that got him in trouble. And it could have been. But you got to give, again, Ruiz a lot of credit. And I think that he could duplicate that again if there was any type of, sloppiness on Joshua's part. So he's going to have to be really careful. And again, I feel like if you had to place a bet and you were on the fence, of course, you got to go with Ruiz. But not only that, guys, I think that if the decision goes up a bit, I might take a shot on that as well because he has a granite chin when we're talking Ruiz. And if he isn't able to knock out Joshua, we're looking at a decision, right? So if it went to 4-1 and it possibly could, I could see this 1.33 turning into 1.20 as the fight gets closer or something like that, right? So we'll have to see on that, but I really am looking forward to this, guys. I guess this was more of a hype video as well as a bit of a betting video, more so to stay away from Joshua. I don't really think he's good for parlays. Of course he could win. It's not a disrespect thing. It's a value thing. I don't see it there. And of course, if you are doing Ruiz, a single, you don't need to do a knockout or anything at 3.50. 2.75 is close enough where that knocks out the value of the knockout. So, we'll leave it at that. And I'm going to get into, for anybody watching for MMA, I will give my post-fight or post-weigh-in video for UFC Friday. So I'll see you guys then. And again, if you haven't subscribed, please do. Let me know what you guys think, who you have winning, and your place for the card. All right? I appreciate you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.